to hear that somebody went through this end of life issue with their pet and didn't realize it was an option, because I never did an in-home euthanasia until I was practicing 20 years, and I did one, and it was a game changer for me. And I'm like, and then I started my house call practice like 3 weeks later and never turned back. And I think, and also in that chapter, there's a lot of grief support, things that I've seen that, and resources that I've connected people with, and I thought it was good to have it. And a lot of people are like, yeah, I want to read your book, but I want to skip that chapter. It's too sad. I'm like, actually, the pet trust chapter is sadder. And other people will read my book, and then they're like, I need to buy this for my friend or cousin. They're going through this for that chapter in particular. So you can certainly read it and skip it. You can read it in small doses, the book, and skip that chapter. Depends on your frame of mind, but it's there if and when you need it. And we all get to that point, sadly, where, their lives, we get to that point being pet parents, because it's an unfair reality that we outlive them in general.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. It's the author podcast. You get to meet great authors. If you love animals as much as I do, you're going to love our guest today. Dawn is here. We're going to be talking about her book, her journey. She got so much to talk about. And if you're looking for some tales, not the ones that, wiggle on the back of your dog, but tales of a pet vet, you're going to love having time today with Dawn. Dawn, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Good. Awesome. We have so many wagging tails from all the pets listening to our podcast as well, because pets listen to podcasts, right? I guess so. But we have a lot of pet parents who are here to fall in love with you as an author. So it's exciting. Tell everybody, Dawn, where are you in this big world of ours?
Currently, I am in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm in the North Scottsdale, near the mountains, and I'm here about 7 months of the year. And 5 months I'm out in Long Island, but when it's warmer there. So we're what we call snowbirds, apparently, officially. But I love both places for different reasons.
Yeah, so I've been down to Phoenix and Scottsdale. I went to the old part of Scottsdale, downtown area, and some of the old buildings down there. It's so cool. What an amazing place. Like, for a Canadian to be walking around down there. I remember walking past a patio bar, and I got sprayed by water. I'm like, what is going on here? Because that wouldn't happen where I am. That would turn to ice probably. But yeah, it's such a great place. Oh, it's so gorgeous down there.
It's fun. We have a lot of Canadian neighbors here. Good. They're very strict about, they own, live in our development, and there are rules, they can only spend a certain amount of days here without their citizenship being at risk. But I have many Canadian friends that I've met here, which is wonderful.
Are they rowdy, noisy people? Are they quiet? Like, what are they like?
There's a mix.
There's a mix? Okay. All right. Yeah.
They're not rowdy. Sometimes I play golf with them, so there's not a whole rowdiness on the golf.
All right. Okay. As long as we're well-behaved Canadians, that's the idea.
Well, they are.
Good.
Represent you.
Awesome. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about your background, because it really feeds into your book and your journey as an author. Tell people, Dawn, what do you do? What have you been doing in the past around animals and pet care? Because that's really important to the audience as well. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I was raised in New Jersey, and my father was a Greek immigrant where they didn't have animals in the house, which I talk a little bit about in the book. My mother was an animal fanatic, sort of eccentric, and everything stems from that. Next door, my grandmother lived. She was also an animal lover, so she was a quote breeder of German shepherds, which she wasn't really. She kept having puppies. Yeah. So we always had this dogs. My mom loved cats, but was allergic to them. So it was mainly dogs. And then we had birds, and we had a monkey, we're sort of locally remembered, famous for that, which sadly, he's probably got him in Florida. Who knows what journey to get him there. But so we had Willie, who was a woolly monkey. And there's a story in the book, I went to a Catholic grammar school and high school, and, kind of like show and tell, I brought in Lily. And needless to say, I think 25 years later at my high school reunion, like, people were not surprised I became a veterinarian. They always and so these animal lovers in my family, it was natural to see them as part of the family, which is now the normal. But as you said before, the pet parent, like, that wasn't even a term that was part of our vernacular. But now it says everything about this kind of evolution that I've experienced in my lifetime and in my career of pet ownership to pet parenting. And I talk a lot about that in the book and in my blog, about the human animal benefits, the bond, the psychological, physiological, all of that. But we were like that decades ago. We weren't the only ones, but I completely see where society is, and some of these eccentric pet parent stories that I talk about in the book. I relate, because I was we were the eccentric or unglued family when something went wrong. So I do relate to those clients. As a pet parent, you experience all these emotions. So as a veterinarian and a pet parent, you get it, or at least I hope you do. I know I do. Yeah. And the intent of this book, it's about me in the beginning, but it's quickly about all the clients and patients and wonderful people I've met, and eccentric, and some interesting stories, at least that I think are interesting, kind of from puppy and kittenhood to the end of life and everything in between. And with more than just puppy and kitten, there's my favorite chapters, exotics, about all the snakes and lizards and crazy things that I did end up seeing, not by design, but by necessity. But it made for some exciting work days, for sure.
Yeah. We've been pet parents, well, for my family with my wife, since our kids were little. And then growing up, pets have always been in my home. I don't think there's ever not been a pet in my home. So I can't imagine a home where one of my parents would be like, absolutely not. We're not having any animals in the house. So you mentioned that. Is that what your dad was that was his belief?
Well, they just didn't have animals in the house.
In the house. Okay. But outside would be okay, that type of thing?
I think they were outside, but he quickly adjusted.
Converted? Did he convert? Yeah.
He sure did. He couldn't help it. And we didn't just have like we had Irish setters and like, I don't know if you've ever had who were just like kind of crazy. And we had rescues, and, so we had every variation. We had all different, but mainly dogs because of the allergy issue. But he grew. But my father from Greece, we had an Irish setter named Zorba and an Irish setter named Atlas. So my mom tried to kind of help him welcome these animals into his life by giving them Greek names, which is funny, but it worked.
Yeah, it worked. I don't think he stood a chance against the rest of the house, right?
No. He was outnumbered. Certainly.
Yeah. My oldest son wanted a snake when he was in high school, and we got him a king snake that was about the length of a pencil, a little bit longer than a pencil, and now she is long. She's a big girl. But she loved to just climb up your sleeve and get warm and just nest under with you. And I know people that are like, oh, heck no, am I going to go near a snake? But she's just the nice, calmest, like the most best pet for somebody with allergies, too, because there's really nothing for her that you have to worry about, right? And she's just this is a great little pet to have. Anyways, a lot of people don't like snakes, but for me, they're great.
I do think that I've been surprised to get to know patients and their personalities. So I like, apparently rats in general are really affectionate and lovely, except for one in the story. But like, and ferrets have tons of personality. I've just been, they're really fun. So I learned that, not living it first experience, but through my career. So I don't doubt that snake can be affectionate. They're Here I live in the desert where there's tons of rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
So all snakes, I'm sort of, ugh.
Yeah, no, that's good. And yeah, and I think the one thing that I think pet parents would agree is the bond that we have with our pets over time. We do treat them like they're our children almost. Like we love on them, they care for us. They make us want to exercise, be active. They it's like they know we're having one of those days where we just need some kind of comfort or affection. They'll just come put their head on your knee, and it's like they're super amazing as far as how they can just be so intuitive of what the human needs, right, as a pet. And I just love that bond.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so special. And I always say, their intuition, but imagine if you were reading body language all day, every day, you'd get really good at it. And that's what they do. They pick up on our moods. They know what's normal. They sense, she's not moving or whatever. They pick up on the nonverbal cues immediately because that's their main way of communicating.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course they can have their moments, but for the most part, I think all the pets we've ever had, they've just been like a joy for our home. And I can't imagine not having a pet. So as you listen to this, parents with your kids, it might be easier to not have a pet when your kids are little, but your kids will grow up having that memory and those interactions. I think it's a valuable lesson for kids to learn how to care for something as well, and all the things that go with having a pet. So I see a lot of advantages. So I'm pro vet and pro pet at the same time here. So there you go. You got me on both. So there you go. Good.
Agreed. Yeah, and I've contributed, and I've blogged about this, and it's responsibility. There's also, empathy, having, some with depression and with social things that they can't control. They have this this love that no matter what, they have some reason, they're dependent upon the family. So being responsible for a pet, there's huge emotional and psychological advantages. It's more work, a little bit more work, but you're busy with kids anyway.
Yeah,
you might as well have a few
What's
pets.
one more? What's one more thing? Yeah, right. Yeah, and then when your kids grow up and they leave the house, perfect time for you to be a pet parent, right? As your kids leave, so.
Very, very common. We see that nest replaced by,
Yeah, it's that routine. I love that. So, okay, your journey as an author then, how did this come to be that you were like, you know what, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to share these stories. What was the idea behind writing the book?
So before I started my house call practice, so probably about 15 years into, I liked teaching. I would teach CPR, and I taught a community course on pet first aid at a community college. And I had all this information that I got together for my students. And I thought, will this be helpful for my clients? So I started a blog, and it was mainly medical and veterinary. And then I just started finding journaling and then really therapeutic for whatever reason. And I started writing blogs that were more personal or humorous, or about the human animal bond, or try working from home with a dog barking, or the benefits in autism, or just any topic that was sort of relatable. I got a lot of feedback. And that struck me as maybe people want to hear more about this. So I sort of divided the book into chapters based on popular blogs that were topics based off a blog. But then I kind of had to extricate the actual blog from the book because my editor said, you don't republish published work. So I sort of rewrote the book, pulled it out. But basically the chapters are divided into topics somewhat based on that. And so that was the jumping point for the book. And it just was such a learning process for writing, because, I would tell these stories to friends and families like, oh, you're not going to believe what happened. This is crazy. This was awful. And it's not, and there's so much humor and just like you're not craziness that goes on with pets, particularly when you're in their home, and they're jumping fences and police were it's like crazy stuff happens. And I kind of it's similar, I think, to like comedians or where they're practicing their material or their stand up, and they're kind of see like this joke didn't go and this one did, and you figure out, my friends will be like, Dawn, tell him about the dog passing $100 bill in his whatever.
Wow.
Like all of the stories that they wanted to hear, and some that didn't make the cuts. So from that, and I just had this mental inventory, and I would go to the beach where it was quiet, and it's amazing. It just all came back to me, just different things. So there's a lot of that went on, and that's kind of how I selected the stories and then edited out. There's like 2 other books that were edited out at this point. Then they keep coming, all these crazy stories or interesting. 2 of the chapters are a little more, I talk about the book being its stories with just enough information to support the stories, with the exception of 2 chapters. One is the euthanasia chapter, and the other is about pet trusts. The pet trust was a blog about legally preparing,
Right.
God forbid, and that became huge because right around the time when I had posted that blog, I had started my house call practice, and I posted the blog, and so many people were like, my mother-in-law won't go to assisted living without her cat, and my grandmother. And so I became their house call vets at assisted living facilities, as well as so many people that lived alone with their pets, so many like 85-year-old widows and giant dogs, for so many of like little older ladies with giant dogs and vice versa. So they were so near and dear to my heart. The other, back to that euthanasia chapter, because I did so many in-home euthanasias, and I spent so much of my career and time. There's such a process of making that decision and knowing the options and talking to clients and helping them through that emotional decision. And then making sure people know that there are house call vets. Like when I started my practice in 2014, there weren't many of us, but since COVID, it's a valid option in many locations. And the saddest thing for me is to hear that somebody went through this end of life issue with their pet and didn't realize it was an option, because I never did an in-home euthanasia until I was practicing 20 years, and I did one, and it was a game changer for me. And I'm like, and then I started my house call practice like 3 weeks later and never turned back. And I think, and also in that chapter, there's a lot of grief support, things that I've seen and resources that I've connected people with. And I thought it was good to have it. And a lot of people are like, yeah, I want to read your book, but I want to skip that chapter. It's too sad. I'm like, actually, the pet trust chapter is sadder. And other people will read my book, and then they're like, I need to buy this for my friend or cousin. They're going through this for that chapter in particular. So you can certainly read it and skip it. You can read it in small doses, the book, and skip that chapter. Depends on your frame of mind, but it's there if and when you need it. And we all get to that point, sadly, where their lives, we get to that point being pet parents, because it's an unfair reality that we outlive them in general. So it's there. But some of this euthanasia stories are really kind of uplifting. Like it was an honor for me to sort of be called into their home and get to know the people and the family, and watching videos. And one cat was a ring bearer at the wedding. I mean, just amazing, amazing experiences I've had. And it's such a personal thing, to earn the trust and to come into the home. Usually it's my clients. It used to be where I would just kind of meet people at that point. I stopped doing that for various reasons, unless I had, a recommendation from specialists. Like I would work with oncologists and different specialists who I would sort of bridge that care at their home and send results and different things. So sometimes I would meet them just at that point. And it's a beautiful, loving way to say goodbye to a pet. And it's hard to explain, but I did my best to sort of say, just really consider this, because you might be surprised how beautiful it can be.
Yeah.
Not to say that it isn't in a hospital. We do our best, but it's a lovely tribute. I think I did about 230 in-home euthanasias
Wow.
in my career.
Yeah. The loss of a pet is such a traumatic thing. We had a German Shepherd with us for years and years and years. He was a rescue from somebody that I knew that did something very illegal and had to go away for a while. And he abandoned his dog, beautiful German Shepherd, gorgeous dog. So I went and found him at some other house where somebody had taken him in, but they didn't want him. And I rescued him and brought him home. So he lived with us. His name is Duke. Beautiful boy, just a gorgeous dog, super smart, like smartest dog ever. And he was getting close to the end of his life, and he couldn't navigate stairs anymore in our home. So he stayed on one level. And where I record my podcast, I'm on a lower level. But he could never come down the stairs. He couldn't make it. And his last day with us, he somehow, while I was recording, I had made sure he was okay, and I came down to do my recording like this. I went out to go upstairs to check on him, and he was at the door, which meant he came down the stairs, which he couldn't do. And he made his way down, and that's where he passed, right by my door, right? And he made his way to me, right? Yeah. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, buddy. Like, he knew that it was important to be as close to me as he could in that moment. And it's just the bond, right? And then to see my kids' reaction to losing him as a pet that they've grown up with, just it was like losing a family member, really, in that moment, right?
It is.
It was very, very, very tough, right? To see your kids weeping, and that part of their story is now gone. There's a lot of things you don't realize in the moment. So my caution for everyone is to treat that with respect and honor when you do lose a pet like that, or someone like you comes in, Dawn, to help with that end of life, because it's a sacred moment for us. There's, like you mentioned, there's a lot of memories wrapped up in that moment, and we need to handle it with very, very carefully. And right. Yeah.
You never forget.
No.
Moment your whole life. I can tell. I remember every single, and so it's so important to get it right. And what I feel very strongly about, and I talk about in the book, is because the respect and to die with dignity, and the euthanasia, it's a good death, translates in Greek. People say, I just want them to go naturally, but I disagree. If naturally is painless, that's fine. But those are, whenever a client says that, it never happens now, right. Or I always say it's better to, your pet best. And if it's to spare them of inevitable pain and suffering, I would much rather be called in earlier than too late, which I've been in way too many times, more than it's worse, far worse for me. And I think the family. So my job is to help guide clients, or support whatever it is that they want. But I, having seen both sides, I really try to, I have a questionnaire that is a quality of life questionnaire that people, it's more of an objective way of making a subjective decision. And because it's awful. It's the hardest decision I ever made was for my dog India, because they have some good days, and plus my kids were out of state, a few of them, so how it is, you have holidays and people come into town that maybe haven't seen the pet for months, and they're like, oh my gosh, the dog has declined. And it's more obvious when you're not there every day, and it's this insidious march. So there's so many conversations that happen in and around that, and I think that that's the single most important thing to get right. Because if it goes wrong, you have the horrible memory forever. And I hear the stories, so that is why I'm such an advocate for these in-home euthanasias. One of many reasons, just because they're eating chocolate on a bed, or they're having these amazing days at home. And then I just give them a sedative. They just go to
Yeah.
sleep.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Where they're happy. They're not in a strange environment where
Yeah.
sometimes emergencies happens. It's happened to me where it's preferable if you can plan, but sometimes you can't. But it's nice to sort of think about it and get your family on the same page if you have the luxury of having time
Yeah.
to make these decisions. And that just kind of, if you read that chapter, it's in the back of your mind for if and when. And hopefully people will read it well before it's right in that time period, but
Yeah.
when they need it, it's there. I thought it was important to include.
Yeah. When you go in to do in-home care for pets in someone else's home, like you don't have all of the tools that you would have in your office. You don't have the nice table to get the dogs up at height level. Like you don't have all the accessories that you would normally have in your office. Is it difficult for you to do that in a home environment compared to someone coming to an office that's set up for clients?
Yeah. When I moved to Arizona, I sold my house call practice and I was doing relief and I work in these and I volunteer and I'm like, oh my gosh, you weighed the dog. You took his temperature. Oh, this is so easy. Like I just walk in and because, I joke that I pulled out my back so many times with big animals and lifting them. And I'm like, I think I'm aging out of my career. Wrestling with a 200-pound mastiff to trim his nails is overrated.
Yeah.
Don't miss that. There's so many huge advantages to being in the house as a veterinarian, but you got to load up your van. It's like I'm traveling 12 times a day, in and out with the luggage. I got a whole system. I got coolers. You're pulling, my husband was always like, why don't you get this hydraulic table with wheels? I'm like, how am I going to get it in and out of the car? Those things weigh like 500 pounds. So I'm like, in theory, that's lovely, but that's not going to work. So I'd drive my Subaru and we'd have our wheeled luggage and all of our things that we needed. And I was just packing and unpacking and super kind of organized with, got it down to a system and it worked for me. I sold my practice to this company that, and a lot of these companies, they have like big vans and there are some that the dog goes into the vehicle in the driveway. I went into the home. Yeah. I didn't do surgery. I didn't take x-rays. Some of these traveling vet hospitals are remarkable. They're amazing. But for me, you're at their home, it's convenient, but there's really something to be said for in the home because you see them in their environment. I get all these visual cues that might take 15 minutes of questions. Like, why is what's the setup with like an older German Shepherd and arthritis? I'm like, okay, right away, you need a ramp here. You need mats here. You put a gate because if he gets up the stairs and can't, you just look around. It's like, so efficient in that regard. Or behavioral issues like cats, and the environment and stress and minimizing stress, then you minimize the medical effects. If they're an animal's stressed, they're going to show disease or it's just going to add to their discomfort. So, you might have cats that are fighting and they're being fed too close together or the food's too close to the wall. There's tons and tons of visual cues that I get. And for the most part, especially cats are never really happy to see a vet, but before they know what happened, they're done. Yeah. You have a cat brought into the vet hospital, you got to get him probably in a carrier, then in a car. They walk in, there's all this smells and sights, and they're done before you even touch them. Like try getting blood pressure on a hyperthyroid, like what's the point? At home, they're sort of like, oh, hello, and sometimes they're completely calm at home and the opposite and vice versa. So, I had so many cats that just literally would never go to the vet hospital. So I had an inordinate amount of anxious pets and cats or senior clients or senior, I had giant dogs. I had a house. They had like 4 Leonbergers. Leonbergers are like tiny ponies, furry. They're like They're giant. And imagine getting them all in the car
No.
just to do anything. So, and for the most part, with the exception of pets that were really guarding their home,
Yeah.
those are probably the only ones that really don't do better in the home where they're super territorial aggressive. But for the most part, it's a much better situation. Sometimes we'd sedate. I wouldn't give injectable sedations, but I would give oral. I did that a few times, but I like to be there for them to wake up, and I wasn't real comfortable just leaving,
Yeah.
if a dog was
Yeah.
fully awake. So
Wow.
we figured out what worked and what didn't.
So for Tales of a Pet Vet, who would you say is your ideal reader for the book? Who would you envision loving this book?
So I think anyone who has ever lived with pets and loves pets, I have all these book fairs. There's one or two little like bleeped out words that were relevant, that maybe are not appropriate for under 14 or
Okay.
something. Really mainly any pet lover. I think some little kids, I've gotten feedback and they're fine. It's not little heavier topics as well. So anybody who's ever had a pet or is thinking of getting a pet, I compare the book, and I don't know if I've said this. So I would describe it as one part modern day James Herriot, kind of all creatures great and small, one part behind the scenes, kind of like Anthony Bourdain, like Secrets of Vet's Life, behind the curtain, and one part the humor and humility of Marley and Me. And I encourage people, and like there is a ton of funny stories that you'll laugh much, much more than you will cry.
Nice.
Because everybody doesn't want to, thinks it's sad. I'm like, there's just a lot of funny stuff that goes on, and you'll learn a little, you'll laugh a little, you'll relate a lot, because, you may not be all the stories, but you have this spectrum of experiences as a pet parent, and, people will kind of, maybe that'll trigger memories in their mind. And there's a lot about the human animal benefits and like why we do this. And I'm just fascinated by the way society is, and pets that are spoiled. Like they live better than human children. And I'm just fascinated by it. And I kind of talk a lot about that on my social media, and just am amazed at the overwhelming options. And it's not just diets, it's clothing, it's everything, these experiences. And so I find that fascinating. And I talk a little bit about that in the book as well.
Nice. I think that we do spoil our pets. They have no idea what's going on, but we just adopted another German Shepherd recently from our local Humane Society here where I live, and his owner had turned him in due to mental health concerns for him as the owner, and so the dog is nothing to do with the dog, right? He was just like sitting there going, "Why am I here?" as we went through to pick him out, right? And so we brought him home, but we took him to a pet store on the way home, and he got to pick out his own pet, his toy, and he has his own toy, and it's with him all the time now. It's his little comfort thing, and it's his best friend, his little toy that he picked out. But yeah, it's amazing to see him come out of that shelter to the car, and just the joy that he was experiencing in that moment, that he was away from all the other barking dogs and that feeling and the smells and everything. And then to be with us, he was just like, you could see him transform. And
Yeah.
I watch videos on TikTok and stuff of people bringing home a pet from a shelter or something, and you can see this, just the delight it looks like on the pet's face that I've got a new home. Like it's just like, I just want to go and adopt another pet right now. Yeah.
Crying, right? I'll sit there and cry with those videos. Oh my goodness,
Right.
on social media. And the thing is, I always say, they're like children forever. They don't talk back unless they're huskies or
Oh yeah. Aurora. Yeah.
they don't move away. They don't get in trouble at school. They're just these unconditional love, perfect little support systems that are like an arm, I can't imagine without. And I always say they're such good listeners.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
talk to all my fish I would talk to.
Well,
Um,
yeah. When we let our dog outside and there's a squirrel or a bunny or something in the backyard, he just goes. The shepherd goes right after it. So we call that fast food because he's trying to catch them in the moment. He never catches them, but he's just gone, right? He just loves that. So it's entertaining to watch.
they're very entertaining, and what's not to love? But that moment when you see the transformation,
Yeah.
it's the greatest thing. And sometimes it takes a while because they have abandonment issues, and depending
Yeah.
how long it takes for them to gain trust. And so many stories or clients and that I haven't, like some cats, for example, or dogs, it took like 6 months. And then one day it was just like,
Yeah.
okay, I get it.
We got
It
it.
was just like it happened, the click. Um, they let their guard down, but you can't blame them. They don't understand why they're in a new home,
Yeah.
or their pet parent died,
Yeah.
and you're particularly, or any number of reasons. But particularly since COVID, and here in the US, we actually have a bit of a vets shortage because so many people were adopting, particularly during COVID. And nowadays, compared to, there's so many reasons other than reason, nothing to do with the pet's personality. People
Yeah.
can't afford, or they're relocating, or so many reasons that they have to give up their pets that may not be medical or psychological issue on the pet's end. So there's so many great pets to adopt. And so many more pets that I have worked with that have been rescued. Some of them do come with emotional baggage, and I talk a lot about that in the book. That so those anxious pets that maybe had it from birth and or by situation dealt with a lot of that. In my particular, once I started the house call, because I worked for like 20 years in brick and mortar in every capacity, and then I started it about the last 10 years. So, and everything in between, you see all these different patient populations, but it doesn't mean there's anything wrong. Definitely, I'm a huge fan of adopting and
Yeah.
rescues, and I work with lots and lots of rescue groups in that capacity, particularly no-kill shelters, which are the greatest thing.
Yeah.
So I have more time to do that later in my career now that I'm not working full time. I get to kind of give back, and it's really, it's huge. It's really important as well because I work with this homeless shelter that has this facility for people that are homeless or home endangered. We only, so they don't want to get help if it means leaving their pets, because mostly that is the case. So they'll stay in a bad situation because of wanting to remain with their pets. So that's what I love about the organizations that I work with. It's so important,
Nice.
in my opinion.
So, okay, I have one more question to kind of wrap up our conversation, Donna. I really love having you here, and congratulations on your book. You're winning awards. It's amazing. People are noticing. People are loving the book, and it sounds like a great book for any pet parent to understand the behind the scenes of working with a vet and trusting a vet and what a vet can do as well, and all the things around these pet stories make you laugh and cry and all these things. It's a great book. Before we go to that last question, where would you like to send people to connect with you, get more information about the book, and just follow up from this conversation if they want or are interested to reach out? Where would you like to send the listener?
I have a lot of, so I have a website, drdawnthepetvet.com, and it's got a lot of information on my book. It's got like hundreds of blogs and all sorts of other articles I've written. And I tell people, so the book is paperback, ebook, and audio. And the audio is really fun, and it's not my voice, which is why I really like it. My social media, Dr. Dawn, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and so forth. I'm on Instagram and TikTok more regularly with a lot of trying to not just share about the book and my art. I do pet portraits, but I want to be my kind of this chapter in life, as well as a reliable source of veterinary information in a sea of misinformation. So I'm pet parents are always in search of books that'll help them be better pet parents, and media and medication and supplements and advice. But you really have to question the source. There's some not so good advice out there, and I find it frustrating. And that is my other message in life. So I have a lot of videos talking about that, and how to recognize misinformation versus that good information. So on Instagram, for example, and my LinkedIn, which I'm forgetting, but my link tree is linktree / Dr. Dawn the Pet Vet, and it has all my social media stuff as well as the blog. But yeah, and books are wherever books are sold. You can get my book.
Excellent. You mentioned earlier that there's a need for more people to go down the path of becoming a vet to service all the pet parents out there. What would be a couple key personality traits or things that a new vet should have, you think? I would think like empathy would be something you'd want to have. What else would stand out for you, for someone who's considering to become a vet?
I think that, and I talk about a lot of this in the book, like, it's a long course. It's really rewarding, but I tell people, don't become a vet because you don't like people and you just like animals, because you're going to be communicating with the pet parents all the time, and so probably more than the pet. So you have to sort of figure out a way to talk to people in a way that there's like different personality types. So be a good listener, and be empathetic, not just to the pets, but to the families. You can make recommendations. Here's the best thing, but don't make assumptions. People can't or aren't able to afford or willing to necessarily do things. And you learn that as you go, and you figure out what we can do in this circumstance with escalating prices, with real life happening, so you want to bridge, you just want to be there to emotionally support people. And I think that there's so many great vets out there. If you're not happy with your vet, find another one. And and somebody told me, and I believe this, decades ago, the hardest to replace in your life as a woman, they say, is like if you move, is your pediatrician, your hairstylist, and your veterinarian, because you have these bonds with them. And for me as the vet, like from puppyhood and kittenhood to the end of life, like you particularly in the house, like it's such a special bond. And I love where I would like be in my town and walking in the park and be like, there's my client. How's his rash? How are you? And it's so great. You don't just walk in. It's very kind of old school, what I recreated in my career with the house call in particular. It's like this old fashioned way of practicing medicine, which was perfect for me. So I think you have to like people or get to like people, and you see them through their love for their pets, however they express it. So they become they became a key part of what I loved about my career. It could be frustrating, but mainly the rewards, and really having that connection with the pet and their family is what I cherished about my career, particularly with the house calls. So that's what I strive for, and I hope for anybody who is heading into this profession.
Excellent.
And patient.
Yes, very good. Excellent. Dr. Dawn, thank you so much. Everyone, again, the book, Tales of a Pet Vet, Stories from the Clinic and House Calls. It's a great book for everyone. It's Christmas season coming up at the time of recording, so not only can you buy one for someone else that you know is maybe having a new pet or has a new pet, this would be a great book for them, but also be selfish and buy one for yourself as a pet parent. This is a great stories that you can have and read over the holidays and enjoy. So everyone, please go check it out. And if you love audiobooks like I do, then grab the audiobook. There's a sample right there on the Amazon page. You can hear a little bit of the audiobook before you purchase, but you don't need to be convinced. You've already had time with the doctor. So it's time to go now follow the prescription and buy your copy of the book as well. Dawn, thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you. It was really great chatting. And thank you for having me. It was really fun.
Excellent. Everyone, please go check out all the information for Dr. Don in the show notes. Grab a copy of the book, leave a review wherever you purchase the book so more people will find it, fall in love with it as well. It's a way for us to help Dr. Don to sell more books. And that's what we want, reach more people with this book. So again, Dr. Don, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. It was such a great opportunity. I love what you do, and I'm so glad to be part of it.
Hey, thank you so much again for pressing play. As you've heard, great guests on the show. And one thing you didn't hear in this conversation is what? What did you not hear? Think about it for a second. That's right. Not a single solitary commercial for a mattress or a supplement or a whatever you call it. No. Why? Because we don't want to break up the conversation with commercials. So the fact that you're still here means that you are a fan of the show, I'm assuming. So if you want to help to keep the podcast going and to make me feel really happy, all I really care about is coffee, okay? I just got to be honest. I love coffee. I'm drinking one right now. It's starting to get cold. I need to warm it up. Helping us with our Buy Me a Coffee link over at livingthenextchapter.com and also in the show notes helps kind of keep the lights on around here. Remember, I'm doing this for free. I'm paying for everything. So I would love to have a little coffee donation, even $5 kind of fills up my cup. And I would love to enjoy a coffee from you. So if you're interested, again, thank you for listening. But you can use our Buy Me a Coffee link and fill up the cup. Thanks for being here.